Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today's video is going to be another video on freelancing and specifically how to determine how much you should charge your clients to build their website. Now the truth is this is a very important but yet a very complex topic because there is no easy guide. There is no playbook that will tell you exactly how much you should charge your client. There are a lot of factors that come into play, and web development, web design in general is very versatile, and so many things can come into play, and ultimately you are your own boss. With a freelancer, you ultimately get to decide how much you want to charge your clients. But what I want to do in this video is to give you some insights as to how I used to charge my clients, and then hopefully give you kind of like a rough guide with which you can then use to determine how much you should charge your own clients for building their websites. But before I go on, please, if you enjoy content like this, please do give this video a thumbs up. Drop a comment in the box below because it would really help the YouTube algorithm, and I really do need your help. So thank you for your support. Let's now get into today's video. And the very first thing we're going to talk about here would be the factors, the general factors that will determine how much you should charge your clients. The first factor here would be the complexity of the website. How complex is it? But then what exactly is complexity, and how would you determine how complex a website is? We'll talk about that a bit later. The second factor here would be who the client is. Is the client an individual or a company? And if it's an individual, is it somebody that you know? Is there some sort of connection between you and that person? Maybe it's your cousin's friend or your uncle's best friend, something like that. Obviously, you may want to charge a little bit less if there's some sort of connection. And then if it's a company, is it a for-profit organization or a non-profit? If it's non-profit, say for example, they're doing wonderful things like feeding the homeless, taking care of elderly people, taking care of dogs, you may want to charge less because they're doing something nice, and as a way of giving back to society or giving back to humanity, you may want to charge a little bit less for such organizations. Now, if it's a for-profit organization, how big is this company? Is it a startup company? Is it a small size company, mid-size, or is it a large company? Obviously, the larger the company is, the more you may want to charge. Now, how much more? This could be anywhere between an additional $500 up to an additional $2,000. It all depends on who the client is. Let's talk about the third factor here, which would be what I like to call the ETD, the expected time of delivery. So let's say as a freelancer, typically you would deliver projects within 2 weeks. But what if you come across a client who wants you to deliver the project in 1 week? Obviously, you want to charge a bit more because now there is a time factor involved. Let me just say this right now. I was going to talk about this in a separate video, but now that we're here, let me just quickly say this. From my experience, you generally want to avoid these kinds of projects. The reason is because it puts so much pressure on you to deliver the project on time. And the truth is, you never really know what's going to happen tomorrow. Maybe your laptop might stop working. Maybe you might have internet issues. You never really know. And the thing is, now that you've already committed to delivering the project in 1 week, there's going to be so much pressure on you. And even though you're being paid additional for that, at the end of the day, it may not be worth it, especially if you're unable to deliver the project on time. So I know if you're just starting off as a freelancer, you're happy to get any kind of job, you have bills to pay. But hopefully at some point, once you become more comfortable, you have more projects coming your way. Generally, you may want to avoid projects where the client has a hard deadline. Another factor here would be if the client wants you to add content on their behalf. So maybe they have blog articles that they want you to post for them. They have images, they have videos. They want you to add all this content for them. You're going to charge extra. And then the fifth and final factor here would be special requests. Maybe the client wants you to use, just as an example, right? Maybe if you're like me, you're comfortable using Elementor to build websites, right? But then the client wants you for one reason or the other to use the Divi page builder plugin. Now, if you're like me, you're not that comfortable working with Divi, but your client wants you to use Divi. So you might say, okay, I'm going to charge just a little bit extra because now I'm using a tool that I normally would not use. So as a way of compensating myself, I'm going to charge a little bit more for this special request. So those are the 5 main factors. Again, the complexity, which we'll talk about next, who the client is, the ETD, expected time of delivery factor, special requests, and then if you have to add content on behalf of the client. So now let's talk about the complexity of the website. How do you determine how complex a website really is? Now, what I like to do here is to divide my websites into 4 main categories based on complexity. The very first category here would be your traditional blog slash landing page slash one-page websites. Blogs are very, very easy to build. Typically, you would have the blog page, maybe the home page, a contact page, an about page, and that's usually it. Same goes with your landing pages or your one-page websites. The only complexity involved in here would be how much content you're actually building or how many sections of content you're building. You may have seen some landing pages before where no matter how much you scroll down, that page never seems to end. You just keep scrolling down, scrolling down, scrolling down. You see this section for testimonials, you see this section for reviews. It's like it never ends. So that's typically the level of complexity for these kinds of websites. So usually I would charge anywhere between $500 to, let's say, $1,500 for these kinds of websites. And then the second category here would be your traditional business website, a website for a business where there is no financial transaction occurring on that website. What I mean here is that the business is advertising their services, advertising their products, but then it's not like you have a payment gateway being involved where the potential client has to pay that business for the product or service. Usually for these kinds of websites, you will have maybe a contact form or a book an appointment kind of form, or book a call kind of form where the potential client can get in contact with the business, and then maybe the client has to go and physically visit the business, and then whatever happens right there. It's not like the client is actually paying with a credit card or a debit card directly on that website. So these kinds of websites will have the contact page, obviously, the about page, the team page, the services page, things like that. So not that complicated, but it's still a website for a business. So typically I will charge anywhere between $1,000 to, let's say, even $3,000 for these kinds of websites. Now the third category of websites here would be business websites where a financial transaction will occur, where the client can pay the business for the service or product. And then also your e-commerce websites for drop shipping, or your WooCommerce websites where customers have to pay for the service or the product. These are obviously a lot more complicated because now you're talking about things like shipping, payment gateways like PayPal, Stripe. You may have to do things like handle inventory, handle refunds, things like that. So these kinds of websites are exponentially a lot more complex, a lot more complicated than your traditional business website or your blog website. So for these kinds of websites, I will charge anywhere between $2,500 all the way up to $6,000. It all depends on how complex the website really is. And then the fourth and final category here would be what I like to call the miscellaneous websites. Websites like, let's say, for example, a social media site where you would have to use a plugin like, let's say, BB Press, or let's say Body Press. Maybe an online course platform where you have to use a tool like, let's say, LearnDash to build a platform. Maybe a business directory website, things like that. So usually for this kind of websites, I will charge anywhere between $1,500 all the way up to $6,000 as well. It all depends on how complex such websites really are. So you will notice that I've been talking about complexity, how complex the website is, and so on. And I've just given you 4 main categories of websites based on complexity. But the truth is, just because 2 websites belong to the same category does not mean they're equal in complexity. Just because you have one blog and another blog does not mean they're equal in actual complexity. So what is this complexity I keep talking about? See, when it comes to building a website, there are 2 main factors involved in here. One is the functionality of that website. How do you define functionality? Functionality is defined basically by what the owner of the website can accomplish. Maybe they can collect subscribers, they can collect emails, maybe they can sell products, but it's also about what the visitors or the users on that website can actually do. Maybe they can pay for products, maybe they can book appointments, maybe they can post comments, maybe they can join a mailing list, maybe they can share articles and so on. So that generally defines the functionality of the website. The second factor for the complexity here would be the style, design, aesthetics. What's the color scheme? Are you using any special font family, font properties, animation, visual effects, things like that? So the design and the functionality together defines the actual complexity of that website. And this is why when I broke down the websites into four main categories, I had a range. So like for the blogs, I said between $500 to $1,500. So the most complex kinds of blogs would reach up to $1,500. But let's go even deeper, right? Let's talk about scenarios. You have one blog, you have another blog. Let's imagine the simplest kind of blog, right? This blog would have the homepage, the blog page, the about page, the contact page. And then maybe on this particular blog, users will be able to post comments. They would also be able to share the articles that they like with their friends on social media, right? That's typically standard. But then what if you have a more advanced blog, a more complex blog where the user wants you to build a form for a mailing list, connect that mailing list to, let's say, MailChimp or ActiveCampaign. Maybe they also want you to design a system where as soon as they publish an article on the blog, a tweet is automatically sent out on their Twitter account. Can you now see how a bit more complex a blog can be from your very, very, very simple kind of blog? E-commerce websites are notorious for complexity. Like your base standard e-commerce website would have, we'll have shipping options, you'll have shipping methods, shipping classes, shipping zones, and so on. You will have traditionally two payment gateways, PayPal and Stripe. You would also have like the shop page, and then you will have the ability for the client to process refunds. That's typically standard for e-commerce websites. But then, what if the customer wants you to create a system where the very first time the client or the customer, the buyer basically buys a product on the store, maybe your client wants his website to offer that customer a coupon, 20% off of your next purchase as a way of thanking you for buying your first product on our store. That's something you have to work on. In terms of handling refunds, maybe your customer wants you to create a system where instead of offering a full refund back to the buyer, maybe you can offer an exchange instead. Or maybe you can convert, or maybe the buyer can convert how much they spent on the product they're refunding. They can convert that to maybe a gift card that they can then send to a friend or family member to use to purchase something else on the website. Like e-commerce websites can get so much complicated based on specific kinds of requests from the client. So how do you navigate this muddy waters, if you will? What I like to do is to first of all have the base fee for each kind of website. So like I said, for a blog, the base fee here is $500. For an e-commerce website, the base fee would be $2,500. But then for such base fees, there should also be a standard amount of features that will go into such. So as an example, for your blog, what do you have? You will have the contact page, the about page, a comment section. Users will have the ability to share articles on social media, and you may even want to have the mailing list. You could have like a very simple form where users can subscribe to the mailing list of your client. All that can be included in the base standards for the base fee of $500. And now the additional features like send out a tweet when I publish a post automatically, you can say, okay, for that particular feature, I'm going to add $200 for that. Or you want me to connect your mailing list to ActiveCampaign or MailChimp, an additional $200. Okay, so once you do all the additional functionalities, you add the extra costs to the base cost with the base features, and then you can present to your client saying, okay, this is how much I'm going to charge for your website, but then these are the features you're going to get. The same goes with your e-commerce websites as an example, right? So the base features for an e-commerce website would have things like the shipping zone, shipping classes, shipping methods, two payment gateways like PayPal, Stripe, the ability for the client to handle requests. You may have inventory as well. And then additional functionalities like, okay, offer a coupon to the buyer when they make the very first purchase. I'm going to charge an additional $100 for that. Or you want me to be able to create a system where the buyer can offer an exchange of products if they're not happy with the one that they bought at first. Okay, an additional $200, things like that. So again, have for each kind of your website, have the base features that will go into the initial amount. So again, for your e-commerce websites, maybe your starting fee is $2,500. You will have all the features for the $2,500 right there. And then any additional requests that don't belong to the base features, you start adding a little bit extra for those features. I hope I'm making sense in here. So ultimately, the goal here for you is to have a starting fee for each of these kinds of websites. And then that starting fee will have the base features. These features will go into this starting fee. Any additional features would require additional charge. And that's ultimately how you can then get to determine how much you should charge your clients for the websites. Again, you have other factors like the expected time of delivery, who the client is. Ultimately, you're the one who will get to decide how much you should charge. But there are a few other things I want to quickly mention in here. There is this thing I used to do called the triple S package. So the triple S here being SEO, security, and speed. You can create a bonus package where you offer these additional features to your clients in addition to the original amount you're charging them. So what am I talking about in here? For speed, for example, you're talking about caching. You can install a plugin like WP Rocket. You could even hook them up to a content delivery network as well. For security, you can install Akismet to fight against spam comments. You can configure the word fence firewall, things like that. And then, of course, for SEO, you can use a plugin like Rank Math just to offer some basic SEO configurations on the website. So what I used to do back then is I will charge $250 for each one of these packages. So overall, that will be $750 for the triple S package. However, there are some things you could do. Instead of charging $750 for those three packages, depending on who the client is, you could charge $600. So you could say, for an additional $600, I will add these features for you. One thing you could also do is you could grab one of those features, specifically the security feature. Customers love security. You could grab the security feature and say, I'm going to charge you, let's say, $1,500 for your business website. But then as a bonus, I'm going to give you my security feature where I would install the word fence firewall, add a Akismet for you, things like that, as a way to sweeten the deal and convince the customer to go with you. But then for the additional two other features like the SEO and speed, you may want to charge just a little bit extra for that, because the truth is, if you know what you're doing, configuring the word fence firewall and security in general shouldn't take more than an hour. Configuring Rank Math shouldn't take more than an hour. And then for speed, doing things like converting the images, optimizing the images, installing a caching plugin like WP Rocket shouldn't take more than an hour as well. So it's just a way to earn extra money and offer extra value to your potential customers and clients. So that's ultimately my guide on how to determine how much you should charge your clients. I know, again, it's not that easy. There are so many factors that come into play. Ultimately, you're the one who gets to decide how much you should charge. But let me say this, never, ever undercharge. It is much better to overcharge than undercharge. There is nothing worse than you working on a project and then every day you keep telling yourself that, man, I should have charged more for this. I'm getting underpaid for this. I should have charged more. It's not a pleasant feeling at all, because it can affect your performance. It can affect your enthusiasm, and you really don't want to do that. So if anything, make sure you always charge an amount that you're happy with, that you're comfortable with. And then also another piece of advice, make sure that you are very, very clear with your client on what you are delivering. Going back to the SEO package, make sure you tell them that, hey, this SEO package involves you configuring rank math on the website. It's not going to involve you optimizing the content on their behalf, because some customers might think, oh wow, SEO, so you're going to guarantee our content gets on the first page of Google by paying you an additional $200? Okay, no. Make sure the client knows exactly what they're getting from your packages or whatever you're offering them. Good communication is key. Nothing is more important than good communication between your client and yourself, and that both of you are fully aware of what's expected from one another. So if you have any questions about anything I covered in today's video, please put them down in the comment section below. I'll do my best to answer them as quickly as I can. Again, if you enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up, share the video with anyone whom you feel might benefit. And if this is the first time you're coming across this channel, or you've been coming across this channel and you haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe and hit the bell so that you're notified whenever I upload a new tutorial. My name is Alex. It's been a pleasure. I hope this video will help you get more customers and charge your customers better in a way that you'll be very, very happy. Thank you so much. Stay safe out there, and I'll talk to you next time. Cheers.